and welcome to this week's GG Weekend Watch, kindly sponsored by Bet.UK, where we have been reunited with Andrew Mount, Daryl Carter and myself after Daryl was away at Wincanton working last week and then had, well, look, a stellar weekend at Leopardstown last weekend, Daryl. So how was that?
Yeah, it was good fun. A few too many beers on the Saturday, but good fun. Great to see some really good horses coming past you, Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I'm going back next year, definitely, if they'll have me.
They'll have you. I think we'll all be joining you, to be fair, because from what I've heard from absolutely everyone, it just looked incredible. Like I say, the top class racing, for how financially viable then it was for everyone. It just looked the best crack. So good to have you back with us anyway, though. But Andrew did hold the fort then last weekend with plenty of success anyway, because he had Half Shot finishing second at 16-1. Red Rookie finished third at 7-2. Jerry Colomb won at 10-11 in the end, but I did tip him off at 2-1, just saying, as my nap. And then we also had Gallopin de Champs managing to beat Epatant's price and winning at 130 on for Andrew. And Barnacullier finished second at 28-1. Tipped up even bigger, though, than that when Andrew tips him up, which was some shout for the young horse stats in that race. But we're going to move on to the action this weekend from Warwick and Newbury. And we start at Warwick with the 130. This is a handicap chase for 5 rods and over 2 mile 4. Just the 5 runners here, Daryl. So would you like to kick us off, please?
Yeah, tricky little race. Think Andrew's going to kill me here because I think he's going to like Galahad Quest with the cheek piece angle for Jane Williams. Am I right?
Yeah, best of a bad bunch. I thought I wasn't that keen on anything, to be honest.
Yeah, totally agree.
Only half ruined it for him then.
Totally agree. Yeah, Jane Williams, as Andrew's mentioned a few times, got an excellent record fitting cheek pieces to these horses. The Spirit Desmosa, Favre de Sivola, horse favourite of Andrew's in recent times. She hasn't put them on too many horses, actually, I don't think, since 2009 at least. I thought Stolen Silver was a little bit vulnerable at this track. So I thought he would be worth taking on. The other one I liked was Mackenberg. And to be honest, I only liked either Galahad Quest or Mackenberg. I'd probably just side with Mackenberg because I thought the drop back in trip last time was against him. I think he wants 2.5 miles, but he stayed on pretty strongly behind Maylistic at Doncaster. The slight concern with this is I think Stolen Silver is probably going to get a soft lead on the front end. Not a lot of these like to lead. And just whether or not he gets sort of the pace to aim at. It's a very tricky course, as I've said 100 times, to come off the pace at Warwick. Do like front runners. There's no real out and out front runner. I think Stolen Silver will make the running, but I don't think he necessarily needs to. So it's a tricky little affair to get started. I'll just side with Mackenberg just because he's a bigger price than Galahad Quest.
But you were between those two. 8-1 about Mackenberg. Galahad Quest is currently 100-30. Andrew, who are you siding with?
Yeah, not Night in Dubai, who has got a long time in between drinks and is a 10-year-old now, needs the mud. He's a potential pace angle. Galahad Quest wasn't far away behind Elixir de Nuts in the early stages when second at Wincanton last time. I tipped him up that day because of the small field angle. A little bit disappointing that he didn't get closer to the winner, although we've seen time and time again Wincanton is a dog track where whoever rounds the first bend in front often stays there, like that 50-1 last week when Daryl was Stolen Silver as another possible front runner. It's a case of really you sort of want to hold fire until they're lining up and see who's on the inside and might get the lead. But I'll go Galahad Quest. Nick and Jane Williams combined, because obviously it's a bit confusing because before Jane was training in her own right, she was actually effectively training under her ex-husband Nick's banner. I think the last 7 first-time cheek-pieced runners from those 2 yards, 3 winners, 2 seconds, and a couple of fallers. So yeah, Galahad Quest for me, but not a strong selection unless it wins, which I'll claim as a 5-star now.
Exactly, that's it. We will replay this back and we will edit it like crazy. Yeah, very strong opinion / not that strong opinion, depending on how we edit this in the post recording. Galahad Quest then 134. Andrew. Now we move on to Newbury for a 0-140 handicap hurdle for 4-year-olds and over 3 miles at 150. Now this is an open contest, Andrew. So 9 runners, 6 to 1 the field at the time of recording. Who are you siding with?
Yeah, funny old race. Took me by surprise this one. I thought Barbados Bucks had been retired. I remember backing this one for the Albert Bartlett on the strength of his Kempton win when he did really well against the bias, winning in the swamp on the inside rail. Not gone on at all since then, and just continues to generally disappoint. It wasn't a bad effort over course of distance a couple of runs ago when he was third to a Buffalo Soldier after wind surgery at 18-1. I'd probably stick him in the play spot, but I'll be tempted with Regarding Ruth. despite the long absence. She's a 9-year-old now. She's trained by Lucy Wadham. You can back every Lucy Wadham runner in February and make a profit. And of course, we haven't seen her since May 2021, when she was actually a 6-length winner off a mark of 127. Obviously, the sort of handicap has relented slightly because of the absence. She runs off 128. And it's worth remembering that 3 runs ago, she won this race at 22-1. Beating a certain I Will Do It into second by 5.5 lengths. I Will Do It ran off 127 that day. Is now rated £28 higher over fences. So she's ready to go. And the fact that she's running in this race after the absence, suggests that she will be, and it's probably not just coincidence that she happens to have been ready to run for the first time in almost 2 years as this race comes around. So I'll go Regarding Ruth. It's kind of all, she's probably going to get tired and pull up or win. So I won't be backing her each way win on it.
Just on the nose. You have 12-1 then Regarding Ruth to win this race again. That's mad, isn't it? With the I Will Do It stat then within. They're probably the only British horse we're going to get in the Grand National this year, Daryl. But apart from that, whole side subject, who are you siding with here?
Yeah, Regarding Ruth, one of 3 I thought pace angles in the race. The other being Sir Robbie and Annual Invictus. I thought Bridget Andrews did far too much too soon at Uttoxeter on West of the Bridge. It was quite a good circuit time that day, and he was obviously on the sharp end. She was just always having him under the pump a little bit, and I think he's a little bit better than that, and I think he's better coming from off the pace. So I'm hoping that with the fact that there's at least 3 pace angles in this race, that she might just bury him away and creep into this quietly. He's got a good record at this time of year. He's fairly handicapped, and I thought he was better than a better result last time.
14-1 about West of the Bridge to give him another chance, and I hope that it's a bit more confirmed pride than this time round. I will happily take that in that race. It's listed action up next in the form of a mare's herd of 4-year-olds and over 2 mile 5 at 205. This is at Warwick. No West Balboa in here, but we do still get to see Love Envoy out, Daryl. So is she going to take all the beating as the market suggests?
I don't know, Kate. I don't think she's been all that good this season in her 2 starts. I thought at Sandown she I know Playful Saint came out and won in the mud next time in a poor race at Leicester, but I didn't think much of that race on the whole. She won again at Sandown, beating Martello Sky, who's since blown out again. There's obviously some sort of issue with that horse there. The time of that race, I think, was one of the slowest circuit times I recorded of the entire day for Love Envoy. So I didn't think it was as impressive as a lot of people were making out. Look, she's up in trip a little bit here, but I do think she's vulnerable to something. I'm not entirely sure what. I thought maybe theatre. I can't back Molly's Always Wishes unless she comes off a break. So after 14 days for me is no good. Indefatigable, I thought had a squeak back in Mare's company. I think she's been finding life tough off a handicap mark of 145 and then against the boys in grade 2s. I think back against her own sex, she might just spring a little bit of a surprise. But I thought Theatre Glory was the most solid to try and take her on with. I think this horse will run her race. I think back on a bit better surface will suit her. She wasn't totally disgraced behind Grey Dawning, who picked up the pieces really at Kempton last time, and she was just a bit too keen that day for me. After that was basically her first run since April, so she might come on a bit, and I think she just might be able to put it up to Love Envoy.
Okay, then taking on Love Envoy, Daryl. Andrew, are you of similar mindset?
No, I thought she'd win. She keeps recording career best Racing Post rating every time she runs, pretty much. I think she's done it something like 9 out of 10 of career starts, including the last 6. I thought she had a great chance in the mare's race at the Cheltenham Festival. I thought she'd take this on the way. The fact that she's generally held up will be an advantage at Cheltenham, not so much here, although she did win here on New Year's Eve 2021 when ridden prominently. So, Jonathan Burke, as long as he hasn't got it too far off the pace, I thought she'd take the beating. It's fascinating to see what's happened to Indefatigable since she was the 6-4 joint favourite with Maurice Rock for this race 2 years ago. And their careers have taken sort of radically different directions, gone in radically different directions since then, I should say. She's a 10-year-old now, so she's probably past her best. But, I did put her up as an each-way bet behind Maurice Rock, who Daryl tipped up for Cheltenham last year, and she was still there in contention on the outside when taking a late fall. So maybe that fall's left at its mark. I'm not sure, but I'd love to see her run well. But I think it's Love Envoy's to lose this race.
Do you think the ground's against Love Envoy?
She's by Westerner, isn't she? But you look at what she's raced on previously. She's done it on yielding ground a couple of times, hasn't she, in Ireland? So we're not talking sort of hop deep mud when she won that Fairy House, when she finished second, sorry, I should say, at Fairy House. I mean, I thought it's not going to be stupidly quick, I don't think. I still think she's going to take the beating here. She just looks a lot better than this lot. I mean, she's well clear on RPRs. I think she'll win this, and then she'll run a really good race at Cheltenham.
Yeah, that is a question, though, that a lot of people are going to be asking about the current good ground that's given at Warwick, when we tend to associate Love Envoy with softer conditions. So that is going to be a bit of bit of an interest there. But I do always think of you, Andrew, whenever I see Indefatigable running. So definitely a special place in your heart, dear old 10-year-old that she is now. But yeah, may well just go to Love Envoy. Now it is Grade 2 action up next in the form of the Denman Chase for 5-year-olds and over 2 miles 7 at 2:25 at Newbury. And if I'm being honest, this looks a very feasible Grade 2 for one of these 2 pickups. So Andrew, who might that be?
Yeah, fascinating race, this one. I don't like Hitman just because he's Hitman, and he's won once for his last 8 starts. You've been asked to take 7-4 in a Grade 2 contest about a horse with a very poor wins to runs ratio, a bit like Mon Morale, who keeps getting supported but keeps getting beaten. I mean, Eldorado Allen, of course, won this last year. Different headgear combinations today. I would be a bit worried about coming back in trip to an extended 2-7 on good ground. I mean, we talked about this previously when they passed the post in the Charlie Hall chase. All I wrote my tracker for him was Welsh National. And I thought he'd be up in trip and be sort of ploughing through the mud over sort of 3.5 miles plus somewhere. I'd give him a squeak of getting in the frame in the Gold Cup, if it came up soft. And, he did run in that race. But I'm going to go against the front 2 in the betting here. I'm going to probably side with a few, actually. I mean, Felion d'Estrevale in the first-time cheek pieces, likes Newbury, won twice here at the November meeting. And, of course, I'll put him up as an each-way bet at 33-1 plus in the Coral Gold Cup handicap chase, the former Hennessy. And, of course, he ran an incredible race in that. He seemed to be detached and tailed off after a fence, and then he stayed on and finished 7th. I think I'm on each way 6 places, typically. Does he know that the one I'm going to make is my main selection in this race? I think he's very progressive in small fields, going left-handed, lightly raced and open to further improvement. Kalashnikov wouldn't rule out either. He likes Newbury. He's a former Betfair hurdle winner, of course. He was 3rd in this race to Secret Investor a couple of years ago. I didn't think he shaped badly on his comeback after a long break. Generally, Kalashnikov's all about fresh, and left-handed, because he went close in the Supreme. Did he win the Supreme or go close in it? One of the 2.
He Somerville Boy beat him that year, I think.
Yeah, and because one Daryl and I have both touted at Newbury, we put him up as a better 14s. He went up 11-2 when winning here. He's obviously got a bit to find at the weights, but that ability to handle the ground and the love of the track could bring could make a mockery of that 143 rating. So I'll be looking at Felion d'Estrevale. Does he know Kalashnikov and Zanza? Probably do the 4 in combination trifectas and exacta, but does he know would be the main selection.
Main selection 7-1, does he know? But those 4 to take on the 2 at the head of the market for Andrew. Daryl, how are you seeing this?
Yeah, I really like Zanza again. For this, look, I know the ratings say that he's got a bit to find, but I would actually argue that he's probably a mid 150s horse at Newbury. He's got form figures of 1-1, 6-1-1. Loves the track. The blinkers have been on recently. I would put a line through the run at Wetherby last time. It doesn't bother me when he throws in a poor one like that. But back at Newbury, he's just a completely different animal. I mean, he was absolutely slammed by Eldorado Allen at Newton Abbott over 2 miles a couple of years ago. But in 2021, in the Howden Gold Cup, he was only beaten 3 lengths by Hitman and Eldorado Allen over 2 miles, and he was staying on strongly behind the pair. I'm not entirely sure why they put first-time cheek piece on Eldorado Allen now as a 9-year-old. I didn't think he's not the type that needs him. I just think he's as good as he is. And Hitman, I think, is soft. I don't think I wouldn't trust him in a battle at all. And after the rest of them, you kind of have to make excuses for. I know, like Felion d'Estrevale's rated 158, but I don't think he's run to that for a long time. I know he's held up a lot of time. He comes from off the pace. He's a difficult horse to get. He needs everything to fall right for him. And I think Zanza's going to travel through this really strongly, and I think he'll quicken away. I honestly think he's a cracking price at 33-1 for an each-way bet.
You know what I said about Indefatigable? Every time I see her, I think of Andrew. Every time I see Zanza, you come to the forefront of my mind, Daryl, every single time. Daryl, I'm annoyed with myself that I didn't have a secret envelope. As soon as I saw Zanza was declared, I thought, I know exactly where Daryl's going with this. 33-1 the outsider. Zanza then for Daryl. Oh, I'm so annoyed at myself that I didn't predict that.
I feel really bad that I don't spend half as much time thinking about you two as you seem to think I'm thinking about. Okay.
You cloud my mind. What can I say? I spend far too much time with the pair of you two that you just there all the time. Your little voices in my head. So there you go. There's a happy thought for this week. But I'm disagreeing with the pair of you though, because I'm going with Eldorado Alan in this race because I want to take on Hitman anywhere I possibly can. I don't trust him, and the only reason he got his head in front on his penultimate start because it was a 4-runner race and he just got the easiest time of things ever. It was not a horse race. He was not challenged, and again he folded last time out in the King George. It was reported that he did bleed. Would I want to side with the horse that bled last time out as a 7-4 favorite? No way. So I'm gonna side with dear old underappreciated Eldorado Alan, who did finish 4th in the King George himself, beaten a long way, but he did just run his usual consistent race. And after he won this race last year, like I say, I'm not really taking into account the first time cheek pieces because I agree. I'm just sort of think I don't know what difference that's going to make with him. But I don't think this is a stronger renewal as last year. So me with the 9-year-old Eldorado Alan. Right. There may well be some more Cheltenham Festival insight in our next race because this is the Grade 2 Kingmaker Novices Chase for 5 rods and over 2 miles at 2:40 at Warwick, where Jonbon has his final run before the Arkle. So, Daryl, are you trying to get him beat here, or how are you playing this one?
Oh, you know what? I'm very tempted to try and get him beat.
I thought you might be.
I was, because I really liked the run of Hadex Des Obeaux over course and distance last time. But there's a few things that is Jamie Moore injured? Is he?
He got a horrific fall at Fontwell the other day.
Did he? Oh my God!
It was awful. Yeah, no, he was knocked out for a bit. Yeah.
Oh well, let's hope he's all right. I hope he gets better soon. But Hadex Des Obeaux, I was really impressed with him. The form's worked out. He won by 19 lengths. Like, I genuinely thought, Christ, he's worthy of his place in the Arkle. The way he's continuing to improve, and I was just hoping that there might be a little bit of dig in the ground for him. I don't think he's going to be able to match the pace now, Jonbon, if it is genuinely quick or good ground. So that's a slight worry. But I think Hadex Des Obeaux will give him a bit of a race, that's for sure. But I won't be taking him on.
No, so non-bet race, just to watch this one. No, yeah. and hope that Hadex Des Obeaux just at least gives Jonbon something to think about to make it interesting. Andrew, who do you like?
Yeah, fascinating little race. Because if you're going to get a funny result at Warwick, it's probably because the horse in front stays there. It's a front runner's track, as we often talk about here. So Hadex Des Obeaux, even though Base Rock and Calico made the running last time out, they did so at a lower level. Base Rock, I know it was at 2 miles last time, but it was at Carlisle, a stiff track and softer going. And he's been campaigned up to 3 miles, placing over that trick. So I don't think he's going to have the pace to go with Hadex Des Obeaux, who is going to try and put them to the sword from the front. I mean, he's never lost when completing the course outside of his seasonal debuts for Gary Moore. So, I mean, again, I'll be tempted to sort of back him. And then I'd probably be tempted to do Jonbon to beat the other two in forecast, because if he's the one who sort of goes hard from the front, tries to sort of serve it up to Jonbon, gets tired and gets his heart broken, he's perhaps going to sort of drop back to to 3rd or even 4th. So maybe Base Rock could stay on from off the pace to get 2nd. So yeah, 2 bets: Hadex Des Obeaux to win and Jonbon to beat Base Rock in a straight forecast.
So you're kind of covering 2 angles then for what this race might pan out. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Actually, like you say, you're taking 2 separate opinions on a race, but you can back them both and perhaps then get the win either way, hopefully. Anyway, so good ways to play the Kingmaker. It's further Grade 2 action back at Newbury in the form of the Game Spirit Chase for 5 rods and over 2 miles at 3:30, where Greaneteen is currently a 47 shot. So Andrew, what do you want to do with this one?
Yeah, that's another good question. I'm going to say hats off to Fergal O'Brien for running Mortlack again. 5 runners and get the best part of $2,000 for finishing 5th. Yeah. He's picked up some nice prize money, hasn't he, through running in races that he's going to struggle to win, but he keeps completing the course and keeps getting prize money. I mean, Elixir de Nuts, was he flattered by winning from the front at Wincanton? But then again, those tactics can be so effective here as well. Funambule Sivola has been very disappointing since that 40-1 second to an Ugerman in the Queen Mother Champion Chase last year. Now Greaneteen, I mean, generally he runs on right-handed tracks, but because he was fourth, beaten 2 lengths at 50-1 in the Queen Mother, and what I've always done with him is when he wins during the current season, oppose him next time. When he gets beat, back him next time. I think he's something like 5 times from 8 he's bounced back to win the next time out. But then he's no price, is he? So good ground, left-handed, 9-4 on. You can't be bothered, can you, to back him at that sort of price? Funambule Sivola, you've got to forgive what he's done for the best part of 12 months. I mean, if I was doing anything in the race, I'd probably back Elixir de Nuts to lay him in running and just hope he gets a soft lead on the front end. But not really a bet for me other than that.
And again, though, at least there's another potential way to play this race, because it doesn't leave us too many options, Daryl, does it?
Well, I quite like Funambule Sivola for this.
Okay, then fair enough, it does.
Yeah, I quite like him for this. I think he's an excellent price at 5-1. I can't understand how the hell he's not a lot shorter than that. How Elixir de Nuts is only a point bigger than him, and Melissa got 2 points bigger than him. I think that's madness. I think he should be much shorter than 5-1. Look, this horse for me is a horse that is just been crying out to get back on good ground. The soft ground for his small little stride is just no good. If you go through his form figures on good ground, they read 1-1-2-1. Like this is a horse that wants decent ground. You see how good he was in this race last year. He absolutely dotted up over So Royale, showing plenty of speed on good ground there. I think he'll outspeed Greaneteen. I genuinely do, and I can't see any of the others finishing ahead of him whatsoever. I think he's a spring horse. He tends to come quite good at the end of January and onwards into the spring. I think there's a lot to like about him. I thought there was a bit of promise in that run in the Clarence House at Cheltenham last time. I thought he just gave into the ground coming around to the home bend. And he's bounced back from defeats like that before. He did last year at Doncaster when he was beaten. He was beaten at Cheltenham 26 lengths over 2.5, bounced back and won very cozily at Doncaster and got his season going at the end of January. I think he's been crying out for this. He's last year's winner. I think he's got a great chance. And as Andrew said, Greaneteen's not won left-handed since his novice days. Now that just might be circumstance, the fact that he's run right-handed. He was a good second in the Queen Mother, but that was a terrible renewal that year. I don't think this horse is done improving just yet. Over 2 miles, I think he's speedy and he's got more to come on good ground.
Wow, yeah, so no need for exotic ways to play this race after all. Daryl's happy to play. I'll give you 13-2 as well about Funambule Sivola, so even better than 5-1 Yeah.
I'm gonna nap him now. That's a very persuasive case.
Very.
I one thing I will say is I was a little bit torn on how to sort of play this really, because it's 13-2. There's 2 places getting quarterly odds each way, right? Can any of you possibly, honestly, see Elixir de Nuts, Malistic, or Mortlack finishing ahead of Funambule Sivola?
You'd hope not.
You'd hope not, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you backed him each way, even if Greaneteen does do a monster turnaround on it, and bolt up here. And let's not forget, Greaneteen was beaten on his last visit here by 12 lengths by none other than Champ and So Royale. So that form line does give Funambule Sivola a squeak anyway. Like, would you play him each way? Would you play him straight win?
Honestly, I chicken out of it and I go each way if I'm getting 13-2 because I'm a bottler and you're not chucking away the win part of that bet for me either. But
I think I'd go win, because if you're right about him being a good ground horse who starts to thrive as spring approaches, then he's going to run a cracking race. If he's sort of gone at the game based on his last 3 runs, then he's going to finish out the back of the telly. So yeah, I'd
win only. Okay.
Win.
That's the decision I made. So thankfully, it's been thingied by you. So.
Further bolstered.
If you're doing multiples with Zanza and some other fancies, then by all means stick them in each way multiples. But I'd go win.
Yeah.
Oh, well done. It's a very persuasive argument, clearly, because Andrew's going on my nose now for 13-2 Funambule Sivola. I'm still a bottle job, so I'm still going to go with my each way play then for him. But I have at least been persuaded around, because I had no opinion on that race whatsoever. And our final race, I was going to say it's a more interesting betting heat, but actually from what we've just been covering there, it probably isn't now. But it is the Betfair Hurdle, now a premier handicap for 4-year-olds and over 2 miles at 3:35 at Newbury. And as expected, it is obviously a very open-looking market, but lots of these runners have stood their ground better than we were expecting, Daryl. So who wins it?
Yeah, fascinating contest, isn't it? Brilliant race. There's lots of interesting runners. Obviously, Filey Bay at the top of the market for Emmett Mullins is, I suppose if you're going to handicap a horse, the best way to do it is to run him in the fog at Wincanter when I can see what he does. But I'm happy to take him on at the head of the market. He's had a little bit of a drift since final decks. Iker Allen's interesting for Willie Mullins. Willie Mullins has had 41 runners at Newbury since 2009. Do you know how many winners he's had?
Oh, I can't think of one because I know a fair few that have been beaten at short prices.
One.
Who was that? Who was the one?
Stratum in 2018. To be fair to him, he's only had 2 run over hurdles and both finished second. Both finished second in the Betfair Hurdle.
Field and Age.
Yeah, and
I think
Bluet Rouge.
Oh, well done.
Both for JP McManus as well. And obviously the 4-year-olds got some lovely form, juvenile form last year with the likes of Oban and Ilite Thompson, who we've just seen give that form a good boost at the weekend. Like, I don't know if he's thrown in off 146, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's there or thereabouts. And just remember, they could have put Gaelic Warrior in this race, but they've chosen to put Iker Allen in. So I can see him being very well supported. The other little angle in here as well is that every winner since 2015 had run in a graded race on their start prior, whether it be grade 1, grade 2 or grade 3. There's only 2.
It wasn't graded, Daryl. It was class 1.
I think, no, it wasn't definitely.
Was it graded?
Yeah,
I split it by class when I was doing it. And
did you?
Let me just have a look. Sorry,
I think it was except for our dancer but that was one at Ascot. But grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. I had a look at. There's only 2 horses in here that fit that bill: Highway 102 and Tritonic, both massive prices. I'm gonna have a little save on Highway 102 because I thought he actually ran really well at Kempton behind Constitution Hill. That he was never going to match that one, but I didn't think he was disgraced. He wasn't knocked about by Jamie Moore at the time. He was he's got a very similar profile to Glory and Fortune, who won it last year, because the year before he was well beaten in the race, but he was wearing a hood. He's not wearing a hood this time round. He's a front runner. I'm going to have a small saver on him. My original fancy for the race was Master Chewy, but I've said to you before, Kate, that I always have original fancies for these races and then I go off them.
Yep.
So he might end up costing me a couple of quid. But the one I'm backing, I'll get straight to it. Sorry, the one I'm backing is No Ordinary Joe for Nicky Henderson. I think this horse was a remarkable performance at Kempton off the back of a year break to beat Big Boy Bobby, who's a progressive horse, had dotted up at Huntington the time before by a head. He was actually headed on the running and battled back, and he was giving him £18 that day, and he's only gone up £5 for it. I think it was a cracking effort. I think there's more to come from him. If you take away his 2 runs at Ascot where he's ran poorly on both occasions and let's just say he doesn't like Ascot, his form figures are all number 1 other than a third in the Greatwood, which was an excellent race, which he was on the sharp end of the pace, and he was only beaten 2 lengths by West Cork, and that race worked out tremendously well. I think there's scope for improvement off a mark of 139. So I think he's going to go very close. 6 places, and there's 6 or 7 places. So it'll do for me each way.
Well, no, and to further bolster that, AP McCoy said on Tuesday that he saw him working the other day and he worked like an absolute machine. So I was asking him, what of these JP horses are actually going to run? The one name he picked out was No Ordinary Joe. Couldn't persuade JP, he said, to back him at that stage when he was 10-1, but he might do now that he's 12. So further bolstering it. But I also looked at the grade 1 angle, and I only went back through the last 5 winners of this. And like I say, Glory of Fortune, grade 1 Christmas Hurdle, Soaring Glory, the grade 2 Supreme Trial pick Dory, grade 3. Like I say, our dancer was the only one then that when it was run at Ascot, so I just sort of took that.
Yeah, we can throw that away.
Side, really, that one away. and then Kalashnikov in the Tolworth then prior to that. So I tried to take that into account, then ended up totally ignoring it by going against
exactly what I did.
I'm just concerned that he's just going to go hell for leather in front and he's going to tee it up for something in behind. That was my biggest concern. But I'm still going to side with a horse that generally is ridden prominently first. They've got two in this. Hacker de Place I know you're not getting sort of massive amount of value about him at 7-1, but I still think that he's a very progressive horse. That was a really competitive Cheltenham handicap hurdle last time out. And after he was beaten by the reopposing Highway 102 on his penultimate start, like I say, I fear about front runners in this race here. So I think that he could well reverse that form. And he jumped well last time out. He picked up in really good style. Probably got to the front too soon, hence why he was just wandering about a bit. But he gets a penalty here for that win 14 days ago. He's the unexposed, progressive type that I like in this race. So side with him. But I also like, much further down, Yorksea, 33-1 about him for that winning combination of Niall Houlihan and Gary Moore. Niall Houlihan claiming 3 still. He also won last time out. It wasn't Fontwell, admittedly, but it's such a dominant display. He does have a liking for that course and distance, but he ran wide throughout. He had so much in hand. He's up £7. He does need to take another big step forward, but I thought he was worth chancing running into a place.
He'll want a strong place. He's a horse. He should really suit a big field handicap. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that Highway 102 is going to drag a few of these along and they're just going to set it up for a horse like Yorks, just to pick up a piece potentially. But Andrew, how are you seeing it?
Yeah, similar to you guys, I think. I mean, interesting. Last time out winners don't have the greatest record in this. The last 10 runnings at Newbury, 2 winners from 54. But I too like Hacker de Place. Well, he was the only one of the first 7 home in that Cheltenham handicap hurdle on trials day who raced up with the pace. And Angus Chilada obviously got there too soon, and Paul Nicholls quoted afterwards said he got there 10 minutes too soon. And so I thought it was a really game performance in the end to hold on like that. Paul Nicholls also said he'd be a better horse in a better race as well because they'll go faster. So I don't think they're going to sort of sit as prominently on him, or certainly not try to make the running as has been the case in the past. And I quite like Iker Allen as well for Willie Mullins. I say his last 2, he's 0 for 10 this race in the last 10 years the last 10 runnings at Newbury, but say the last 2 have finished second, of course, like you mentioned, Seal de Liège. And I just thought, basically all the winners had ran in a class 1 contest, whether it was like one of these €50,000 grade A class A handicaps such Fairy Houses and Care Allen did, or whether it was a grade 1 contest. So he was favourite that day, wasn't he? He finished 3rd of the 7th.
Yeah,
and
he was unlucky that day.
And again, horses who finished 2nd or 3rd last time out, got a good record. Horses who are sort of 7 or younger, he fits the bill on an awful lot of stats. And I just thought he was one of several with a chance. So I'll split stakes between him and Hacker de Place. Paul Nicholls obviously has won this race a few times previously.
Yeah, he does know what he's doing, really, doesn't he? Hacker de Place for Andrew and I then, but also siding with Care Allen for both the lads. 9-1 about Willie Mullins' charge in the JP colours. Now, that's all of our scheduled races covered. So, Andrew, I'll go back to you, please, for anything from anywhere else.
No, not yet.
No bother. Daryl.
I actually don't have anything from anywhere else.
Oh, okay. Then we're all chips in then on what we've covered. No pressure. Okay, then, Daryl, your nap, please.
Okay, I'm going to go for Funambule Sivola to beat Greaneteen. I am. I do really like him. So, look, I'm desperate for a Saturday winner. God, I haven't
and a 13-2 Saturday winner nap would not be a bad way to go about it. So, yeah. Sivola for Daryl. Andrew.
I need to do more work on the cards, but I think I'll go Does He Know in the Denman Chase at 2:25 at Newbury.
Oh man, okay then, that's all right. Right, I'll go Hacker de Place then in the 3:35 at Newbury in the Betfair hurdle, because why not just nap in the Betfair hurdle, seeing as you've actually bolstered my opinion. So thanks for that, Andrew. Right, that is everything from us this week. Good to have the lads back in full force. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks to the lads for all of their work. Thank you to Bet UK for their sponsorship as ever, and we'll be back again with you next week.